are locked into the Cowbell Kingdom podcast, frontline coverage of the Sacramento Kings. Now, here are your hosts, Jonathan Santiago and James Ham.
Welcome to the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. I'm Jonathan Santiago. With me, as always, is James Ham, and we're out here in the Bay Area for this edition, for this half of the show, and we're actually at Comcast SportsNet studios, and we are meeting today with Ted Griggs, president of CSN California and CSN Bay Area. Thank you for having us out here today to have this conversation. Obviously, we want to talk about, the new TV deal that you guys have with the Sacramento Kings.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for coming this way. I think I'd be a little happier if I could be up in Sacramento with you, near the mountains and the river and everything. It's pretty beautiful up there.
Yeah, well, you obviously have. We'll touch on that in the podcast, but you guys have some plans there in terms of, perhaps building a studio out there as part of the arena. But just overall, starting off, how excited are you to get this deal done and hammer it in, as we close in on this new season of Sacramento Kings basketball?
I'd say if there's an adjective beyond extremely, we would go to that one. We're beyond extremely excited. The Sacramento Kings have been a part of our portfolio for a long time, but never to the extent that we are now, and especially with the new ownership with Vivek, who I've known for a while, and with Chris Granger, who I've come to know recently and have great respect for him. I think the team, it's like buying Apple stock right before Steve Jobs came back the second time. It's really, I feel like the team is just going to explode. The new arena is going to be phenomenal. And we have a long-term relationship with the Kings now that's going to go for years and years to come. So couldn't be more excited about it.
How is it that this deal came to pass so quickly? It seems like we've heard about deals in the past that you guys may be willing to work with the Malou family, but these guys jump in and boom, you guys have a new deal, whether it's 20 years or we don't know exact dates, we don't know exact dollar amounts, but what was it that made this deal so easy to get done quickly? Well,
actually, unfortunately, it didn't go quickly. I started talking to Vivek sort of informally when the Warriors were playing the Denver Nuggets last year, and it started to look like the league was going to keep the team in Sacramento, and that Vivek was going to be the guy. And television, especially the home cable deal, is a big part of. It's a big revenue source and a big part of the marketing of the team. So we started to have some informal conversations. Couldn't really have any formal ones until he was formally approved. And then you really start a negotiation process with the team, and there are a number of things that teams want. Some want different parts in a deal, and sometimes we'll want different things. What we really wanted was a long-term relationship. We see these almost as covenants, not contracts, where we sort of agree to figure things out and get along for years and years to come, kind of like a marriage. And when you meet people like Chris Granger and John Reinhardt and Vivek, those are the kind of people that you want to be in business with for a long time. It's not just a transactional business; it's a relational business. And sometimes when you have those kind of deals, you sometimes will make sacrifices for the good of the other person, because you realize you're in it for a long haul. We're not trying to make every dime in year 1 or 2 or 3. We want to have a relationship that lasts for a long time.
Yeah, you mentioned there those relationships. Obviously, knowing Vivek here, I'm sure you met him when he was still a minority owner in the Golden State Warriors. Chris Granger, obviously, his experience and background coming from the league office. Just kind of offer us your perspective on how you've done business with them and how they negotiate and operate as business people.
Well, Chris is a consummate gentleman. Vivek is someone who is constantly sort of trying to push the borders of the box or color outside the box, which is why he's been so successful in business. And when I talk about things that are important to different people in different deals, for Vivek, really it was all about bringing what he kept saying, basketball 2.0. bringing basketball to fans in a different way, whether that's via the web or smartphones or tablets or whatever, taking the broadcast to different places, inventing new technology, trying new technology. That really is first and foremost for him. Some other owners, maybe that's not so important, but for Vivek, that is really important, and we embrace that because we're a technology company. We're a product company. So when we have some owners that say, as Chris said to us just a few weeks ago, he said, "You want to try new things? Try them with us. You want to test some things out? Test them out with us. We're here for you." That's great to hear because sometimes teams are a little reticent to do those kind of things. So we're pretty excited about that.
The Kings were one of the last holdouts as far as holding everything in-house. They've done a really good job over the years. They've won Emmys. They've done a lot of good things, but everything has been their own. They've from camera guys all the way up. How is the broadcast going to change this next season and going forward when you guys take over control of sort of the operations on the television side?
Yeah, so I think what I hope is that we keep all the good and maybe upgrade a couple of things. I mean, obviously, Jerry and Grant are loved in Sacramento, and we definitely want to continue to work with them. They're awesome. What we can bring at Comcast, SportsNet, and NBC is I don't want to make it too simple, but we shop at Costco, right? So when I'm doing a truck deal, I do a deal for 500 events, not 700. So I can get some efficiencies, and I can get some new technologies that maybe you couldn't get if you were just buying TV trucks for 40 home games. Then you multiply that times 11 or 12 regional sports networks across the country. Then you multiply that by NBC, who's doing things not just in Sunday Night Football, but in the Olympics, where all new technology gets pushed to the highest level. So there's great economies of scale. Plus, there are people who are pushing technology, and we can take that to our Sacramento Kings broadcast.
You talk about the behind the scenes stuff in terms of how you guys may do things a little bit differently, but for the fans, they hear this, oh great, new television deal, 20 years. You mentioned Grant and Jerry will still be a major part of this, but what will change in terms of their experience? What are fans going to be able to see in terms of this new deal with the Kings and Comcast SportsNet?
Well, they'll see. First of all, they'll see very simple. When you buy a new house, you change the carpeting and the curtains. So they'll see a new graphics look, which is our CSN graphics look, which will include the NBC Peacock. That'll be the first most noticeable thing. I think we'll have some additional replay sources, some super slow-mo things. We will have pre- and post-game shows for all of our games, home or road. We hope to involve Mitch Richmond and Scott Pollard and some other players that we're talking to who are legendary players for the Kings. We'll be hiring an insider to work for our web who will be just like somebody for the Sacramento Bee or any other newspaper as a reporter who covers every single game. We'll be doing a monthly magazine show, which we'll call Kings Central. We'll be doing a draft preview show. We'll be doing a season preview show, a season postscript show, and we'll be doing a number of things on the web. So one of the things I love about working here is when we jump in the water, we don't walk in up to our ankles. We jump in. So it's a lot of fun. We get to do a lot of fun stuff.
You guys, when it comes to the new arena, it sounds like you're going to have a built-in stage right there, like in the entryway. That's at least what we've heard. How excited are you to see how this new building goes up? I mean, it's going to be a couple of years, but again, this is a long-term deal for you, so you've got to be pretty excited about the future. Yeah,
so we just built a studio at Levi's Stadium with the 49ers, and it's part of something that I started since I became general manager is I really believe that we need to have our shows our pre and post game shows out and part of the game day experience. Fans don't just come to a game for the game anymore. They want to be, they want to make it isn't a 2.5 hour experience. Sometimes it's a 4.5 hour experience. So what we want them to do is come and say, hey, let's hang out at the pregame show. Let's get on television. Let's hold up some signs. Let's get some autographs. And we do a number of marketing handouts. We hand out little tchotchkes or T-shirts or all kinds of things to entice it, so that when a fan comes to a game, that attending the pregame and attending the postgame and maybe meeting the players and talking to the players is part of the experience. And the great thing is, forward-thinking teams like the Sacramento Kings and Chris Granger and John Reinhart embrace that fully. They say, yeah, that's what we want too. So when we go to them and we say, hey, we want to build a studio as part of your new arena, they say, fantastic, here's the best space, as opposed to trying to put us in a closet somewhere.
Yeah, what are your impressions of what they have planned? We were just talking about it before we got on here, that you guys took a tour of the Experience Center. We've been there a couple times ourselves, and it just seems like they're so forward thinking in what it is that they plan on doing. I mean, your impressions of what's to come in 2016?
Well, it's amazing. I mean, that right there tells you everything you need to know about Vivek and Chris. That virtual tour is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And it's funny. I mean, you guys are from Sacramento. I lived in Vacaville for a while. People joke around and they say, even your show, Cowbell Kingdom, it's a cow town or whatever. I mean, we're going to have a state-of-the-art technological arena there that will set the standard for every other place in the entire country. And that's pretty cool, right there in Sacramento, right in downtown. And we're going to be a part of it, CSN.
You're getting to see some of the same things happen. I mean, you talk about the new Levi Stadium, you talk about, the Giants right here. How have you seen arenas or stadiums sort of change the experience, the way that fans look at the game night, game day, and how they plan their entire week around it and stuff like that? How have you seen that change?
Well, that's exactly it. I think it used to be, I remember when I was a kid, we would go to an A's game, right? You could get up and you drive a half an hour and park the car and go to the game, come home, have dinner, whatever. Now it is you go to the game, that's your whole day. Right, and so you show up early. You have a meal with your friends. You make a plan after the game, and teams are getting really smart about. Although there are a number of businesses, and there will be in Sacramento as well, where you can go to a restaurant or something, and like in Wrigleyville, there's all kinds of places around there. But teams are also offering that right there at the arena. With the 49ers have this Michael Mina food experience, which is like, unbelievable. I'm sure the Sacramento Kings are going to have, some of the greatest food in the world there. There's going to be all kinds of things, and we're going to be a part of that. And people can be. The other thing is, people like to be part of television shows. They like to call their friends and say, "Hey, you saw me on TV." They like to be a part of it, and the audience is not just key to the basketball game, because the fans do affect the game, but they affect our television show too. And they're going to be a part of it.
We don't want to get into specifics about the dollar amount. We know that it's been reported at to 20 years, somewhere around $700 million, but that number doesn't sound like it's completely accurate. But would this deal have happened with the previous regime, or is this something that you see innovation, you see potential, and it's something that you want to jump on and be a part of with the new group up in Sacramento?
We always want to do long-term deals, but you want to do long-term deals with people that are in it for the long term. And I think that with Vivek and Chris and John and the front office, you can see they're in it for the long term. So, we make significant investments, as you mentioned. There's significant dollar investments, but there's also significant programming investment, significant energy investments. We're all fired up about the Kings right now. So it's good to do that with people that are in it for the long run. And there's one thing I've seen with these guys is, what I love is owners that want to win, and they want to win, and that's great. As a fan, I think that's all you can ask for, and as a television executive, that's all I can ask for. Is if the team wants to win, if they're not really, counting every nickel and dime and saying, well, how much money is this going to cost me? When they're really thinking about the P and the P and Ls, or the W and Ls and not the P and Ls. Mm-hmm. I think those are the guys you want to be in business with, because the P and Ls end up taking care of themselves if you get the W and the Ls right.
All right, to wrap things up here, we talk about it being a 20-year long-term deal. How do you see the landscape of media changing in the over that 2-decade period? Obviously right now the television deal is a major part of it, but you're working with an ownership group that is very heavily invested in new media technology. Everybody, you can look at things at the palm of your hand with your cell phone these days. Do you see the mobile and the the online component maybe in the future having more weight than perhaps even the traditional media means in the long term?
Well, first of all, it won't say whether it's 20 or not. All I'd say is it's long term, yes. Right? But I will say that if you look back 20 years, you never could have predicted where we are now. And I think that anybody who tries too hard to predict where we're going is just foolish. What I always say is you know that there's going to be a lot of waves, and you got to be out on your surfboard paddling. And so the great thing about technology is the customer tells you what they want. And if you pay attention and you paddle with the wave, you'll catch it. And if you don't pay attention and you try to say well, this is what the customer's going to tell me, you get in trouble. So where it goes, I don't know. I do know that with this team and with the backing of Comcast and NBC, we will be perfectly situated to catch every one of those waves and serve the customer the best way. And who knows? We might be watching games on Google Glass. We might be watching them. We might have contact lenses that give us the games in our eyes. Yeah. If you looked back 20 years ago and said that you could on your phone do your banking and watch games and do all the stuff you do, nobody would have. I remember the first, mobile phones were literally like 30 pounds. It's just, the world changes so fast. You just have to be in the game and you have to be paying attention, and we're going to do that.
All right, Ted Griggs, president of CSN Bay Area in California. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
John, Ted Griggs, what an incredible interview. That was such a treat to go down to San Francisco to the Comcast headquarters. And they just treated us like royalty, walked us through the entire building, gave us this incredible tour. Definitely a top-notch organization that they're running down at Comcast, SportsNet, Bay Area / California.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that we got to find out some tidbits and details that were a little unexpected, such as hearing the possibility of Scott Pollard and Mitch Richmond maybe doing some broadcasting work for the Sacramento Kings this upcoming season. That was a little bit of a shocker, but
yep.
Yeah, it was a fantastic interview, a wealth of information, a lot of knowledge from Mr. Griggs there.
Yeah, and John, what I really like about him is he's got so much energy and passion for what he's doing. He really comes across as not just like an executive sitting in a nice office with a huge view, but he comes off as a true sports fan, a guy who's totally in this for the right reasons. It's a long-term commitment because they're looking long-term with the Sacramento Kings. Loves the ownership group. I thought it was really interesting that he actually answered the question about whether a deal like this could have ever happened under the previous regime. I was very surprised he actually answered that question. And I think Comcast is excited. They're excited about Sacramento and the possibilities here. And, I think the other thing that we'll point out is that there's been a lot of talk about how much that deal is actually worth. We've heard 20 years at $700 million, but there's a little murmur that's coming around that those numbers aren't accurate, that those numbers are sort of pie in the sky. Not that they're way off, but that they aren't on par with what will actually play out here. So I thought that was kind of good too. I mean, he's not going to talk specifics with us, but either way, it was a very good conversation.
Yeah, it was a very enlightening conversation, and hopefully we'll have a couple more of those coming our way. All right, let's change gears. Let's talk about some basketball. We got the World Cup coming up this week, and I don't know, how ready do you think they are? Do you think that they are prepared to make a run here, or are they in serious danger of losing this thing? For me, I think that they are a team that is obviously talented, but there's a lack of experience on this roster, and it wouldn't shock me if they ended up losing. I would not be shocked at all if they don't win this entire thing. But they're capable of it because of the talent, but we all know that talent does not guarantee you a gold medal in any type of competition.
I'm surprised that you believe they're like ripe for the picking. I mean, I think they're just going to roll through the tournament. That's what I think they're going to do. I mean, I think they've got too many shooters. Watching Steph Curry bomb away, and then, they've got a lot of beef. I think this is a team that is built very different than most of the previous teams. And I think this team is built to face off against Spain in the finals. And I don't see anyone standing in the way, to get there. I don't see how this team can lose, in my opinion. I mean, if they lose, it's going to be to Mark Pau Gasol and Serge Ibaka and, Team Spain. I mean, that's the only way that I see this happening. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I think we talked about this in the beginning. Like, the only way that I thought that DeMarcus Cousins would make this team is if he was in the top 8 or 9, like the rotation. He's earned that spot. Clearly, the last couple of games have shown you, they haven't faced off against major teams with size, and he's still playing 14 minutes a game. The knee injury looks behind him. Rudy Gay is the first man off the bench every game now. This is turning out to be a very, very good thing for the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, it's not that I think, obviously they will get out of pool play. I mean, that's not going to be much of a challenge there for them. But when it boils down to it in the end, I can see them obviously getting as far to the first place game, competing for either the gold medal or, if they lose, they wind up with the silver. But, again, going up against Spain, that's a talented team. I mean, they've got, they do have an NBA heavy front line, as you mentioned, but you can't also underestimate the guards that they have, the wings that they have. They've got talent there as well. So, in addition to the experience that they have on that roster, that's why I don't think it's just a total cakewalk for USA. I really don't. I mean, especially when we see them, they're not going to come out. This is not obviously like years past or 2 decades ago when the Dream Team would come out and just start walloping teams right in the first minute and a half of a game. I mean, we've seen, USA kind of try and find their footing against teams like Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, Brazil, and take, about a half to finally figure it out and figure out how to blow those teams out of the water. I think that they're going to have some situations like that if they depending on who they encounter in their matchups en route to the gold medal game, where, it's not going to be an easy blowout. They're going to have to it'll be like an NBA game to a certain extent, where you have maybe like a top contending playoff team against a lower tier team that's not in the playoff hunt, and it's not just an automatic blowout. It just kind of They'll have to really compete in this one, and if they come in, and I think if they come in and just underestimate and think that they're just going to roll over teams with their talent, then that's a recipe for disaster. But I don't think that the USA basketball program really cultivates that mindset anymore. There's a lot more respect for the international game than there was in the past.
Well, yeah, and I think they're letting teams hang around till halftime, and then in the third and fourth quarters they're blowing teams out. That's, I think, what we should expect from a team that hasn't been together that long.
Yeah.
Against Slovenia, I think what they had like an 11-point lead. Goran and Zoran Dragic just bombing from the outside all over the place, and I thought that they were pretty solid as far as a team goes. But when you get into this tournament and you face a team, I mean, Slovenia they had one guy over 6'8". They had like a 7'2" like stiff that came in and just wasn't very productive. But that's what you're going to run into in this tournament. You're going to run into teams that don't have a lot of depth, especially at the big man position, and no one can keep up with Team USA's guards. I mean, there are some good guards out there, but they don't have Steph and Kyrie Irving, and you're looking at Derrick Rose off the bench, and Klay Thompson may or may not get to play substantial minutes. I mean, you just don't. DeMar DeRozan. I mean, there's so much speed, so much shooting. This is a really athleticism, and I mean, James Harden. This is a really, really good NBA. I mean, a really good Team USA as far as talent goes. I mean, there have been more talented teams, but this is still a solid team. So I don't see them losing, but that would be a really big bummer for guys like Rudy Gay and DeMarcus Cousins, who are, especially for Cousins, who's going into this thing for the first time.
Yeah, it just wouldn't really shock me. That's all I'm saying, is if they come out of this thing not as the gold medalists, but it will take them some time. Rudy did talk to reporters after their last exhibition contest against Slovenia, and somebody asked him, how long did it take for you guys to really find your form in the last World Championships, the last World Cup? And he mentioned that they didn't really find themselves until maybe late in pool play or after pool play, once they started to enter the round of 16. So I think that may be the case. They'll use pool play, obviously, to continue to play themselves. Now that they have the roster set, they have realistically had only one game with the 12-man roster intact, no more tryouts, to speak of. So they'll have this opportunity in pool play to really build up chemistry, have an understanding of the rotation, and get ready for the round of 16, where things will get more serious.
John, you wrote a piece earlier this week about a potential point guard that the Sacramento Kings are kicking the tires on. What are your thoughts on what is it, Dmitry Kuligin?
I think. I'm not sure how to say his name.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on him? I mean, you've done the research on him.
He's an interesting player. He definitely has talent. I mean, this is the world we live in these days. It's amazing that you can, go back 10 years ago, we probably would not have any information on him and no film on him and no way to see what he's done. But you can go on YouTube and see clips of him playing. I mean, there isn't a ton of stuff out there that's brand new from this past season. There's some stuff from a couple of years ago. And I think as far as talent is concerned, it's pretty much the same there. He reminds me the type of player he is. I mean, he's he's kind of like a similar player type to me as Nick Stauskas, a ball handling 2-guard playmaker who can, again, make plays for, himself or teammates offensively.
With size.
And he just questionable attitude. That's one of the knocks on him in terms of what the scouting reports are, that he doesn't have, the greatest approach to the game. But that's the Sacramento Kings got a chance to see him up close and personal at the Adidas Euro Camp this summer in June, and he performed actually really well, I believe, on day 2 or day 3. I think he totaled around 18 points or so. in the camp and in the competition that day. So he's a talented player. Again, where does he fit with this roster? I mean, they've already got Nick Stauskas. They've already got Ben McLemore. I understand you want to add talent, but at the same time, adding, young talent to that backcourt as opposed to getting more veterans, which is what I think they need. I don't know about that in terms of how much that makes sense. And, does he fit in perhaps into plans in Reno? I'm not sure if a guy like that will want to come all the way out here to America and then find out, okay, I'm cut and I have to go play in the D League. I mean, he'd probably prefer to just continue to play internationally. So I'm assuming if it does happen and he does wind up with the Kings, it would be, obviously a competition for a spot, but it's make or break either here in Sacramento, or if it doesn't happen here in Sacramento, I don't see him being a guy that they funnel to Reno.
Yeah, I would agree. And it seems really strange the way this offseason's gone. I mean, you add Stauskas, you lose Isaiah Thomas, but you replace him with Darren Collison. So realistically, you've only changed out one rotational player, if I'm not mistaken. Besides that, any deal that's gone on, any acquisition, whether it be Omri Caspi or Simbula or Eric Moreland or possibly this guy, Omri Caspi, I said, but all of those guys, we're looking at guys that are like 10 through 15 on the roster. We're not looking at anybody who's going to crack rotational minutes. Really, I mean, I don't see it. So we haven't seen that much change. I mean, if you're looking at this realistically, you're looking for improvement from DeMarcus Cousins and Ben McLemore and Ray McCallum. And then who knows what you're going to get from Stauskas as a rookie. And then you're coming into the season with this same basic lineup that you had last season. So I don't know that it's been an unproductive off season as much as it's just kind of been, a basic add small pieces off season, and I didn't expect that from this team.
No, I didn't expect it either. I still don't think that they are in a position where they can just kind of, add little pieces here and there. This is not, to me, a roster that screams out, all right, we are good enough to now just, maybe add a solid veteran here in a Darren Collison, or maybe add a shooter or a specialist shot blocking big man type, and we're good and we're in competition. That's reserved for championship caliber teams, of the likes of the Los Angeles Clippers, or now the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Chicago Bulls, San Antonio Spurs, where you don't have to make major tweaks to the roster. I think this, we've said it. It's like beating a dead horse here, James. That this is a team that realistically they've got pieces and they have some talent, but there are duplicate pieces, and they need to find ways to find some more better fits for what it is that they're trying to accomplish here this upcoming season.
John, what I was really, really intrigued to see was, we run polls on the site, and I ran the who's going to start, who would you start next to DeMarcus Cousins at the power forward position for this season poll. And, there are a lot of options. And I didn't even throw Rudy Gay in here because as of right now, the Kings don't really have a backup small forward outside of Derek Williams. So, if you're not going to have Rudy Gay, if you're going to move Rudy Gay and play him as a stretch four, then you got to find somebody else. Anyway, so between Eric Moreland, Derek Williams, Reggie Evans, Jason Thompson, Carl Landry, and Omri Caspi, I mean, we're looking at 6 guys. Eric Moreland, an undrafted free agent, is who the Kings fans chose. Out of nearly 1,200 votes, he got 27% of the vote, 326 votes, which led all of the options. Is that shocking to you, John?
Yes and no, because it's fans. The fans.
I agree.
Because it's like the old adage, "What have you done for me lately?" And he's the guy that everyone who's like it's the recency effect. That's a psychological term.
He's 6 games in summer league.
Yeah, he's the guy that they've seen most recently. and they liked what they saw out of him because he was really energetic. He was out there hustling, making plays. Had a right attitude out there and really looks like the type of player who fits next to the player type who would really thrive and fit next to DeMarcus Cousins and vice versa. But got to remember, he's an undrafted rookie coming in, and you can't expect him to be an impact player right away. There are always outliers, in that regard. There's always going to be like one guy or something who is undrafted or maybe the last pick of the draft and just, really carves his way into the rotation, a guy like Isaiah Thomas. But it's not like Isaiah didn't come in here and just start averaging 20 points and 6 assists as a rookie. He came in and he was a surprise, obviously, but at the same time I think you could argue that he was misjudged in terms of his draft position. He probably should have been drafted a lot higher than the 60th overall pick. But yeah, I don't think you can. I mean, to rely on a guy like Eric Moreland, I wouldn't. It doesn't make much sense to me. I think right now, the guy that you would start, I would start Reggie Evans. Next to DeMarcus. I think you got to have JT come off the bench, even though he would not like it, because he's besides DeMarcus, he's the only other player on this team that's over 6'10".
Yeah.
So you got to have him playing some minutes at backup center and power forward. And Carl Landry, again, he's a guy who's throughout his career proven that he's best as a spark off the bench type scorer. So if I had to pick a starting power forward right now based on the crop of guys they have, you go with Reggie Evans because of the experience and because he's a guy, obviously, who doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective, and he can rebound. He's going to grab like 8 rebounds a minute.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's between Jason Thompson and Reggie Evans still.
Yeah.
Because Jason Thompson is the only guy who can really play the 4, they have so many guys who can play the 5. Besides DeMarcus, they have so many guys who can play the 4 that Thompson can slide over and pick up minutes to spell DeMarcus Cousins. I mean, at this point, DeMarcus Cousins is going to come in to camp in the best shape of his entire life. I hope he takes a week or two off between. Well, I mean, he's only got 2 weeks. By the end of the World Cup, it ends on September 14th, and training camp usually begins right around October 1st. So he's really got not a lot of time to take a break and take a breather, but he's going to come in such great shape that I expect Cousins to play 36 minutes a night, which he's never played at the NBA level. And
if he stays out of foul trouble.
Well, if he stays out of foul trouble, but we're talking 36 to 38 minutes on most nights if he's rolling, if he's out of foul trouble and he's playing strong. And so, I mean, there's going to be only 10 minutes, 12 minutes at that backup center position. So I can still see Thompson stealing substantial minutes at the power forward spot. But maybe I'm wrong. Again, 1,200 votes on a poll. It's actually a really good sample size. That's the one thing that kind of surprises me is that many Kings fans are ready to go with a guy that they've only seen for 6 games of Summer League. Most Summer League games, most fans didn't watch. I think he averaged like 3.5 points, 8 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks a game, something like that. But I mean, he's just so green and just not ready. And it's not like he tore up the Pac-10. I mean, at Oregon State, he was basically the same guy we saw in Summer League. So that's just kind of surprising to me that fans are that far in on Moreland and that far out on everyone else. I mean, especially Thompson, who comes in 4th in the voting. I mean, Derek Williams was the 2nd leading vote getter in that, 250 votes basically for Derek Williams to start at the power forward position. And if the Kings are going to run, that might be a possibility. But still, I found it very intriguing as far as, where the fans' thought process is right now.
Well, you could also look at it as 27% for Eric Moreland, 21% for Derek Williams, 20% for Reggie Evans, 17% for Jason Thompson, 11% for Carl Landry, 4% for Omri Caspi. It's not like he's, overwhelming
not a
majority.
landslide, no.
Yeah, it's not a landslide. I mean, this is like, if this were an election, it would be kind of too close to call. I think that's one thing. I mean, you could look at it statistically from that perspective, that it was still kind of a split. It's surprising that he comes ahead a little bit, but at the same time not, just because, again, recency effect. He's the last guy that Kings fans saw who had some promise in summer league. So I mean, that position is in flux. I mean, there are only three. I think you could say there are three positions that are just locked down right now. Point guard with Darren Collison. You have Rudy Gay at small forward, and at center, DeMarcus Cousins. But then even beyond that, besides the starting lineup at shooting guard and power forward, what's the rotation going to be like behind the first five? Who's going to get the minutes at backup small forward? Who's going to get some minutes at point guard?
Does Jason Terry make this team and have any impact at all? I mean, I don't know how that happens, but I mean, he's still part of this team.
Yeah. So we'll see. It's not that long from now. I mean, we're pretty much a month away from training camp opening. So we are a couple weeks away, and the roster that they have, it's still shocking. I mean, I think we're kind of surprised that they're at this point and they haven't, made any major shakeups here. So maybe they go into the season much like they did last year, and they're willing to just kind of shake things up midway. But how does that play out between your GM and your coach? I mean, when your coach is trying to build some consistency and build a foundation, and you're shuffling players in and out, that's not, I mean, in year one, it's understandable. Year two, when you're trying to build a culture, that's quite a challenge. So, we'll see how all of that plays out in the upcoming season. So let's wrap up this edition of the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. Once again, thanks to Ted Griggs and the folks at Comcast SportsNet Bay Area in California for having us out at their San Francisco studios for that wonderful conversation. And we'll be back with another episode next week. So for James Ham, I'm Jonathan Santiago. You have been listening to the Cowbell Kingdom podcast.